All right, so this is Algebra 2, Semester 2. We're talking about Section 7.3 and 7.4. Here's your discriminant when you figure out what b squared minus 4ac was. It'll either give you two real answers, positive, one double answer if it's 0, and two imaginary answers if it's negative, which is less than 0. All right, we'll try number 2 together. Number 2, x squared plus 6x plus 5 equals 0. So we're looking for b squared minus 4ac. We want to figure out what that discriminant number is going to come out to be. A is 1, b is 6, c is 5 in this case. So here's your 1, here's your 6, here's your 5, here's a, b, and c. You know you have them in descending order. Because x squared is first, then the x number, then the whole number. So b squared will be 6 squared minus 4 times 1 times 5. Did I mess up? Where is it? 319? Oh, am I on the wrong page?
Yeah.
319 is where I'm at. I put 320 on the board, didn't I? Ah, there we go. Okay, my bad. This is the wrong number 2. Okay, here's the right number 2. X squared minus 4x minus 5. So I probably did the wrong number 1 as well, didn't I?
No.
I did that. Did the right number 1? I did right. Somehow I changed the page. Okay, so there is, let's do A is 1, B is negative 4, C is negative 5, so B squared is negative 4 squared minus 4 times A is 1 and C is negative 5. So negative 4 squared is 16. We have a negative 4 times that by a negative 5. What's a negative 4 times a negative 5?
20.
That's a positive 20. Good. So you're going to end up with 36. So what kind of solutions do I have? Two real solutions. Anytime you get a positive number, you're going to get two real answers. Okay, so that's how you do numbers 1 through 9. Not 320. Here's number 7, just to help you out. I think it's z squared plus 5 fourths equals z. Okay, you need to get it equal to 0, like we always do for our quadratic formula. So you got to subtract the z. The z is going to go in the middle because you got to have it in descending order. So it'll be z squared minus z plus 5 fourths equals 0. Now you have your a is 1 because there's like a 1 in front there. Your b is negative 1 because this is like a negative 1 in front of z. And your c is 5 fourths. So you're going to have b squared, which is negative 1 squared, minus 4 times a is 1 times c is 5 fourths. And then negative 1 squared is 1. These 4's can cross cancel. So you're just going to have a negative 1, a negative 1 times the 1 times the 5, which is going to be negative 5. Because negative 1 times 1 would be negative 1. And we not multiply that times 5, you're going to get a negative 5. So you're going to end up with a negative 4. And if it's a negative 4 for this discriminant, it's two imaginary solutions. Because that's a negative. All right, let's start with page 324, number 1. It says solve. So you've got x plus 3 squared minus 5 x plus 3 plus 4 equals 0. Now you've got options here. You could do FOIL, you could distribute, combine all your like terms, get one equation, and then try to solve it. Or you can notice that this is the exact same. It's like having a variable there. It's like having x squared minus 5x plus 4 equals 0. Where the x, we're making the x be the x plus 3. So this x is equaling x plus 3 right now. So I'm just basically making those into x's right now. Now, do you remember using the x to factor two things down? Or an x or a star or whatever they use? The last number goes on top, the middle number goes on the bottom. And we need two numbers that would multiply to give me a positive 4 that would add up to a negative 5. Can you think of those two numbers? Multiply to give you positive 4, add up to negative 5.
Negative 4, negative 1.
Good. Negative 4, negative 1. So your parentheses would be x minus 4 and x minus 1 equals 0. This right here would break down into those two pieces of the factoring. You would take this and factor it into two pieces. Now, do you remember how to solve something from here? How do we find each answer? We make them into 0. We set them both equal to 0. So we say x plus 4, or minus 4, sorry. X minus 4 equals 0. And we say x plus 1 equals 0. So your or not plus 1, why do I think plus? Minus. X minus 4 equals 0, x minus 1. So when you solve this, you add 4 to both sides, you get x equals 4. Add 1 here to both sides, you get x equals 1. So normally your two answers would be 4 and 1. But go back to the beginning. What did x actually equal? X plus 3. So once I figure out what x is, now you take that x out and you put in the x plus 3 equals 4. X plus 3 equals 1. So you gotta substitute that in. And you're going to subtract 3 on both sides. So x is actually going to be a 1, which we already had, and a negative 2. So your two answers then would be a positive 1 and a negative 2. So you factored it down, got x by itself and solved it, and then plugged in the original variable. The original variable was our x plus 3. So we substituted that in for x. That was 1a. Let me do 1b, just so we have more practice. Everybody okay there so far? I start 1b?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to 1b. 1b, 2x minus 1 squared minus 5 times 2x minus 1. And then plus 4 equals 0. It looks like it's going to be the same, almost the same factoring. This time, let's let y equal 2x minus 1. Just so it's a different letter, just so you can kind of see the difference. Let's take out the 2x minus 1 and just put in a y. So you get y squared. This one will just be 5y. And then plus 4. And this x is going to be exactly the same. Positive 4 on top, negative 5 on the bottom. You're going to need a negative 4 and a negative 1 again. So y minus 4 and y minus 1 equaling 0 would be the two parentheses. So y minus 4 equals 0, y minus 1 equals 0. So we got a 4 and a 1 for the two answers for y. But now y equals 2x minus 1. So if I want to figure out what x actually is, I got to take this y out and I got to put the 2x minus 1 in its place. So 2x minus 1 equals 4, and 2x minus 1 equals 1, and solve those two for x. That'll give me the x value. Adding 1 and then dividing by 2 is going to give you 5 over 2. And adding 1 and dividing by 2 is going to give you a 1. So your two answers would be 5 halves and 1. Okay, I'm just going to have you do the A's. So if number 2 has A, B, C, just do A. Number 3 has A and B, just actually, why don't you do, well, it's A and B, they're both, but just do A on those. The 1 over 2y is not anything harder. You're just going to do the same thing we did here. Then when you take out this, put 1 over 2y and just multiply by the 2y on both sides. We can cover that if you need it. So just do the A's. Just the A's only. So 1 through 12, do the A's. Okay, I'm going to do number 3 because, look for a second, because the way to factor it is not just an x. So I do want to show you number 3. I believe it was 1 over 2y squared.
Yeah, there's a 2 in front of the.
Oh, there's a 2 in front of that? Like that?
Mm-hmm.
And then plus 5, 1 over 2y, minus 3 equals 0. So I would change this 1 over 2y to an x. 2x squared plus 5x minus 3 equals 0. And I would use what I call a star. I think it's a lot easier to use, especially when there's a number in front of x. I would use a star all the time. I know teachers still do the x. I always just teach a star. If you're multiplying 2 times negative 3, that's the first number times the last number. That's what's going to go on top. A lot of students forget that, and they just put the negative 3 on top. The positive 5 is going to go on the bottom. On the top of these two sides of your star is just the front 2x, not the square, just the 2x. On the bottom of those two sides is what would multiply to give me negative 6 and add up to 5. They have to be different signs. One's got to be positive, one's got to be negative. And you're going to need 6 is positive and 1 is negative. The bigger one and the bottom one have to be the same sign. Now you can reduce the 2/6 fraction to 1/3. So this is one parentheses right there, x plus 3. Your second parentheses is right there, 2x minus 1. You can't reduce that. So those are your two parentheses. Now you can set them each equal to 0. When you solve the first one, you're going to get negative 3. Here, if you add 1 to both sides and divide by 2, you're going to get a half. Now you have to plug the 1 over 2y back in for x. So 1 over 2y equals negative 3. You're going to plug this in because up here x equaled 1 over 2y. So multiply by 2y to get rid of the fraction. So 1 equals negative 6y, and just divide by negative 6. Negative 1/6 will be your answer for that one. 1 over 2y equals 1 over 2. Again, multiply by the 2y. 1 equals, here the 2's cancel out and you just have a y. 1 equals y, and you're done. So there's number 3. All right, 5A will be the next one I will do. x to the fourth minus 3x squared minus 4. Okay, the different part about this one is that you've got the x to the fourth instead of x squared. You're still going to need to use what I would use as a star here. And 1 times negative 4 would be negative 4 on top. You'd have a negative 3 on the bottom. Instead of x here, you need x squared. X squared times x squared is what's going to give you your x to the fourth. So you've got to have your x squared here for the x to the fourth. Two numbers that would multiply to give me negative 4 and add up to negative 3, negative 4 and 1. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. Negative 4 plus 1, when you subtract those, you would get negative 3. So one of your parentheses is right here, x squared minus 4. So add 4 to both sides. X squared equals 4, square root it. X is plus or minus 2. There's one answer. Well, two answers, because you got positive and negative 2. So positive 2 would work here, negative 2 would work there. Both of them work. X squared plus 1 is your other one. So you got to subtract 1 on both sides. Square rooted. X equals, I believe it's just I. Did you check that one in the back of the book? Did it give us, did it say I or did it say anything else? I think the square root of negative 1 is I. So that should be 1 through 12 that you should be able to finish. All right, let me give you the last part of today's stuff. You still have an hour for it. And we'll do a couple together. All of you are in Algebra 2 semester 2, right? So, everybody here Algebra 2 semester 2 or no? Deanna's Algebra 2 semester 1. Who else is semester 1? Okay guys, let me just do a couple on here and then you'll be done and you'll be on your own for the rest of the day. Okay, so here are a few for the worksheet. Number 1, negative 3x squared minus 2x minus 9 equals negative 9. It says find the discriminant. That's what we were doing on the first page. You need to get it equal to 0, so add 9 first. Those are both going to cancel out. You'll have negative 3x squared minus 2x equals 0. You don't want a negative out front. A should never be negative. So what you want to do is multiply everything by negative 1. So you'll get 3x squared plus 2x still equals 0. A is 3, B is 2, C is 0. There's no C there, so it's just 0. So B squared would be 2 squared minus 4 times 3 times 0. Well, negative 4 times 3 times 0, anything times 0 is what? 0. So you're just going to have 4 minus 0, which equals 4. And so you just take 2 real solutions. So on the first 20, Let's just do the odds on those. Okay, so you can just circle the odd problems on that worksheet and just do the odds. I won't make you do all the evens. So you're just doing 1 through 19 odd on that part. So worksheet 1 through 19 odd. Okay, let me go to number 21. Solve by factoring, so you've got k squared minus 5 equals 4k. Subtract 4k on both sides so that we get a 0. And make sure you put it in descending order. You've got to put the 4k in the middle, the negative 4k. Because that's our descending order. Now you can use the star. Again, I like the star better than the X. Because it helps me see my parentheses better. So I put my negative 5 on top. I put my negative 4 on the bottom. This time I just put a k because k times k is going to give me the k squared. So I just put k. And multiply to give me negative 5, add up to negative 4. I'm thinking it's a negative 5 and a positive 1. Those are my two parentheses, k minus 5 and k plus 1. So when you solve them both, you're actually going to get a positive 5 for one answer. And when you subtract 1, you're going to get a negative 1 for the other answer. So it's just asking you to solve the last group. So on 21 through 30, you're supposed to solve them. Just using the star. You use the star on those.